Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something today. Have you ever felt like life is happening to you rather than for you? Have you ever woken up feeling lost, overwhelmed, or completely out of control? Well, I want you to know, you are not alone. But here is the truth that changed everything for me, and I believe it will change everything for you too. The greatest power you will ever possess is not money, not fame, not talent. It is the power of your own mind. You see, your mind is either your greatest ally or your worst enemy, and the choice of which one it becomes belongs entirely to you. Every thought you think is either building you up or tearing you down. Every belief you hold is either opening doors or slamming them shut. The moment you decide to take control of your thoughts, your fears, your doubts, that is the moment your entire life begins to shift. So today, we are not just going to talk about success. We are going to talk about the source of all success. Because when you master your mind, you don't just change your habits, you change your destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about something that most people completely overlook in their pursuit of success. We chase opportunities, we chase money, we chase relationships, but we rarely stop to examine the very thing that is driving all of that pursuit. And that thing, that invisible force running in the background of your entire life, is your thought. Every single day, from the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you close them at night, your mind is producing thousands of thoughts. And here is what most people do not realize. Each one of those thoughts is a seed. And just like any seed planted in soil, it will grow into something. Think about the last time you told yourself, "I am not good enough." Think about the last time you said, "I could never do that," or "That is just not meant for me." Did those thoughts stay quiet? Did they simply disappear into thin air? Absolutely not. They grew. They spread. They began shaping the decisions you made, the opportunities you ignored, and the version of yourself you chose to show up as every single day. Your thoughts are not passive. They are incredibly active forces working either in your favor or against you at every waking moment. Science itself confirms what the greatest minds in history have always known. Neuroscientists today will tell you that the brain is neuroplastic, meaning it physically changes and rewires itself based on the thoughts you repeatedly think. When you consistently think thoughts of doubt, your brain builds neural pathways of doubt. When you consistently think thoughts of possibility, of strength, of purpose, your brain begins to build entirely new pathways that make those thoughts your default reality. You are literally, physically reshaping your brain with every thought you choose to entertain. Now I want you to understand something deeply. This is not about toxic positivity. This is not about pretending that life is perfect or that pain does not exist. Life will knock you down. That is guaranteed. But what is also within your control is what you tell yourself when you are on the ground. Two people can face the exact same tragedy, the exact same failure, the exact same loss, and one of them will use it as a reason to quit, while the other will use it as fuel to rise. The only difference between those two people is not talent, not luck, not circumstance. It is the story they are telling themselves inside their own mind. The most successful people on this planet are not people who never had negative thoughts. They are people who learn to become the observer of their thoughts rather than the prisoner of them. They developed the awareness to catch a destructive thought before it took root, to question it, to challenge it, and to consciously replace it with something that served their growth rather than their fear. That is a skill, and like every skill, it can be learned, it can be practiced, and it can be mastered by anyone willing to do the work. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what are the thoughts you are feeding most? What are the beliefs you are watering every single day without even being aware of it? Because whatever you are consistently focusing on in the theater of your mind is quietly, powerfully, and inevitably constructing the life you are living. Your outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner world, And if you want to change what you see around you, you must first have the courage to change what is happening within you. And that brings us to something even deeper. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now talk about the one thing that has stopped more dreams, silenced more voices, and buried more potential than any external force ever could. It is not failure. It is not the economy. It is not the people around you. It is fear. That quiet, creeping, suffocating feeling that whispers in your ear right before you are about to do something great. Right before you take the leap, right before you speak your truth, right before you bet on yourself, fear shows up. And for most people, that is where the story ends. They listen to it, they obey it, and they spend the rest of their lives wondering what could have been. But here is what I need you to understand today, and I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a signal. It is your mind's way of telling you that something matters, that something is important, that something on the other side of this discomfort has the potential to change your life. Every great achievement in human history was born on the other side of someone's fear. Every breakthrough, every invention, every act of courage that moved the world forward, it all began with someone who was afraid and chose to move anyway. You see, courage is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the world. People believe that courageous people do not feel fear. They look at great leaders, great athletes, great entrepreneurs, and they think, those people are just built differently. They do not get scared the way I do. But that is one of the greatest lies ever told. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that something else is more important than the fear. It is a conscious, deliberate choice made in the presence of fear, not in the absence of it. Every person you have ever admired for their bravery was standing in the same trembling shoes you are standing in right now. They simply made a different decision about what to do next. Think about the fears that have been living rent-free inside your mind. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of not being enough. Now ask yourself honestly, how long have you been carrying those fears? How many years have passed while you waited for the fear to go away before you took action? And here is the painful truth, it never goes away on its own. You cannot think your way out of fear. You cannot wait your way out of fear. The only way out is through. The only way to shrink a fear is to walk directly into it, because the moment you face it, the moment you take that first step toward the very thing that terrifies you, it begins to lose its grip on you. There is a powerful physiological truth behind this as well. When you avoid something that frightens you, your brain registers that avoidance as confirmation that the threat is real and dangerous. It actually strengthens the fear. But the moment you take action in spite of the fear, your brain receives a completely different message. It begins to learn that you are capable, that you are safe, that you are stronger than the story fear has been telling you. Every single time you act courageously, you are rewiring your brain, rebuilding your confidence, and expanding the boundaries of what you believe is possible for your life. So let me ask you something today. What is the one thing you have been putting off because fear told you it was too risky, too hard, or too far out of reach? What is the dream that fear has been guarding like a locked door in your life? Because that door is not locked from the outside. It has always been locked from the inside. And you have always held the key. The decision to act, the decision to move, the decision to choose courage over comfort even for just one moment. That decision has the power to rewrite the entire trajectory of your life. And once you begin to understand that fear is simply a feeling and not a fact, you start to realize that the real conversation is not about managing your fear at all. It is about something far more powerful, and that is where we are headed next, ladies and gentlemen, in a world that is constantly screaming for your attention, in a world of notifications, distractions, noise, and endless information flooding your senses every single minute of every single day, The ability to focus has become one of the rarest and most powerful skills a human being can possess. We live in an age where everything is competing for your attention, where every app, every advertisement, every headline is specifically engineered to pull your eyes away from what truly matters. And most people, without even realizing it, have surrendered the control of their focus to the world around them. They wake up and immediately hand their mind over to whatever comes first, and in doing so, they hand over their power. Because here is what nobody tells you about focus. It is not just a productivity tool. It is not just about getting more done in less time. Focus is the very lens through which your reality is created. Whatever you consistently direct your attention toward grows in your life. Whatever you consistently ignore shrinks and disappears. This is not metaphor. This is not philosophy. This is the fundamental mechanics of how the human mind operates. Your brain has a system called the reticular activating system, and its entire job is to filter the world around you based on what you have told it matters. When you focus on opportunity, your brain begins finding opportunity everywhere. When you focus on problems, your brain will deliver problems to your doorstep without fail, every single time. Think about what you have been focusing on lately. Not what you say you want, not what you write in your journal or tell your friends, but where your attention actually lives throughout the day. Are you focusing on where you want to go, or are you constantly replaying where you have been? Are you directing your mental energy toward solutions, or are you feeding your mind a steady diet of everything that is going wrong? Because your focus is not neutral. It is not a passive observer sitting quietly in the background. Your focus is an active, creative force that is building something every single moment, with or without your conscious participation. The only question is whether what it is building is serving you or destroying you. Now I want you to understand that a disciplined focus does not mean ignoring reality. It does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist or that the road ahead is without obstacles. A focused mind sees the obstacles clearly, but it refuses to make the obstacle the destination. It acknowledges the difficulty, and then immediately asks a better question. Not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What can I do about this right now?" Not, "Why am I always failing?" but, "What is this failure trying to teach me?" The quality of your focus determines the quality of your questions, and the quality of your questions determines the quality of your entire life experience. The greatest athletes, the most visionary leaders, the most prolific creators in human history all share one defining characteristic above everything else. They were ruthlessly intentional about where they placed their attention. They protected their focus the way a soldier protects sacred ground. They understood that time is finite, but attention is even more precious than time, because you can always find more hours in a day, but a scattered mind wastes every single one of them. They built rituals, they built environments, they built habits specifically designed to guard their mental energy and direct it with laser precision toward the things that mattered most. So the question I want to leave sitting in your chest right now is this: who is in charge of your focus? Is it you, making a deliberate and conscious choice every morning about where your mental energy will go? Or is it the world around you, pulling you in 100 different directions while your dreams sit quietly waiting for you to finally show up? Because the moment you reclaim ownership of your attention, the moment you decide with absolute intention what your mind will dwell on, something begins to shift in ways you cannot yet fully imagine. And that shift, that moment of reclaiming your inner power, connects directly to something even more fundamental that has been shaping your entire life from the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think back to when you were a child. A time before the world told you who you were supposed to be, before the disappointments stacked up, before someone laughed at your dream or told you that you were reaching too high. Do you remember that child? That fearless, boundless, and possibly hopeful version of you who believed that anything was possible? That child did not have limiting beliefs. That child had not yet been handed the invisible cage that so many of us spend our entire adult lives locked inside of. But somewhere along the way, something happened. Someone said something, something went wrong, something failed, and a belief was born. A quiet, subtle, devastatingly powerful belief that whispered, maybe you are not enough. And that is the thing about limiting beliefs that makes them so extraordinarily dangerous. They do not announce themselves. They do not walk through the door and introduce themselves as the enemy. They disguise themselves as truth. They dress themselves up as logic, as realism, as wisdom. When someone says, I am just not the kind of person who succeeds at that, they do not say it as a belief. They say it as a fact. When someone says, people like me do not get those kinds of opportunities, they are not aware that they are operating from a story someone else wrote for them years ago. They have simply accepted it, internalized it, and begun living their entire life within the boundaries that story has drawn around them. Here is what I need you to truly grasp today. A belief is not a truth. A belief is simply a thought you have repeated so many times, with so much emotional intensity that your mind has accepted it as reality. That is all it is. Nothing more. The person who believes they are unlovable is not unlovable. They simply had experiences that taught them to see themselves that way, and they kept rehearsing that story until it felt like identity. The person who believes success is for other people is not incapable of success. They were simply handed a blueprint that was never designed to take them anywhere worth going. And the most liberating realization you will ever have in your life is understanding that what was learned can be unlearned, and what was built by repetition can be dismantled by the same power. Think about the ceiling you have placed over your own life. Think about the areas where you consistently hold back, where you consistently settle, where you consistently tell yourself this is just how things are for me. Those ceilings are not made of concrete. They are not made of steel. They are made of thought. They are made of old stories, old wounds, old voices that were never yours to carry in the first place. And every single day that you accept those ceilings as permanent, you are not living your life. You are living someone else's limitation projected onto your future. The most rebellious, the most radical thing you can do in a world that has tried to define you is to look that limitation directly in the eye and say, I do not accept this as my truth anymore. The moment a limiting belief is challenged, something extraordinary begins to happen. The moment you hold it up to the light and ask, is this actually true, or is this just familiar? The entire foundation it was built on begins to crack. Because most limiting beliefs cannot survive honest examination. They were built in moments of pain, in moments of vulnerability, by a younger version of you who was simply trying to make sense of a confusing world. But you are not that person anymore. You have lived more, learned more, survived more than that younger version of you ever thought possible. And it is time to start building beliefs that are worthy of the person you have become and the life you are still capable of creating. So I want you to sit with this question and let it really land. What would your life look like if you removed just one limiting belief that has been holding you back? Just one. What door would open? What relationship would heal? What dream would suddenly move from impossible to inevitable? Because the walls you think are surrounding you are waiting to come down the moment you decide they no longer belong in your story. And once you shatter those walls, once you step into the open space of what is truly possible for you, you will quickly discover that knowing what is possible is only the beginning. Because possibility without one final crucial ingredient will never become reality. Ladies and gentlemen, we have traveled through the power of thought, we have walked through the fire of fear, we have sharpened the blade of focus, and we have torn down the walls of limitation, and now we stand at the final destination, the truth that makes everything else work, the ingredient without which every other lesson collapses into nothing. That truth is consistency. Not the consistency you feel on a good day when motivation is high and energy is flowing, but the consistency you choose on the hard days, the quiet days, the days when nobody is cheering for you and results are nowhere in sight. It is that daily, disciplined, unwavering commitment to showing up for your own mind that transforms everything you have learned into everything you will live. Master your mind every single day, and without question, without exception, you will master your life.